Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to those who join us online and for all of the members of the public who've joined us in the gallery and to the councillors here and attending remotely. I formally open the meeting and I call on Councillor Burke to give the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of all present and those watching on webcast, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of these lands, the Cammeraygal people, on which we meet, and to pay our respects to the ancestors and spirits past and present.
Thank you. We've had a request from Councillor Lepouris to attend tonight's meeting remotely, and I would suggest that we should also grant a leave of absence to Councillor Mutton. Moved by Councillor.
To increase the volume?
We'll try and speak louder. Is that helping?
Yes, I do have hearing aids, so.
Okay. It's moved by Councillor Gibson. Is it a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Beregi. I'll put that to the meeting. All those in favour? And that's carried. Welcome, Councillor Lepouris. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Lepouris.
Yes, I'm going to disclose an interest in item 10.7, a pecuniary interest, so I'll be excusing myself.
Thank you. Are there any others? No. This meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on Council's website. Those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. By attending the meeting, you are giving consent for your image and voice to be webcast. It's a reminder to councillors, council staff and members of the public that you ensure that your mobile telephones are turned to silent during meetings of council, and councillors who need to use their phone to text, talk or engage in social media must leave the chamber to do so. That takes us to confirmation of the minutes. Is there a mover? Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Welsh. All those in favour? And that is carried. We've had a request to address council on 6 items by David McDonald. Is there a mover? Councillor Beregi.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move that we open the public forum for the items that Mr. McDonald would like to address and open the debate.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Burke. All those in favour? And that is carried. The first of those brought forward, before we get to those brought forward items, there is a mayoral minute that is seeking council's agreement to join an organisation called Welcoming Cities. On Friday afternoon, the Director of Corporate and I met with a representative of an extraordinary organisation backed by a not-for-profit foundation called Welcoming Cities. And she described how they're an organisation that supports councils across Australia and indeed across the world to promote social inclusion, in effect. The organisation is free to join. There are 250 member cities worldwide, 80 in Australia. And what they do is knowledge sharing, evidence-based research and case studies, access to frameworks to measure and assess and the inclusivity. And they promote the good work of councils who are doing well across our nation. Given that we have just started to engage our community again on a social inclusion strategy, and for me, that in that community engagement that we undertook in May and June and July, there was such interest in social inclusion and how council could support it. And it seemed to me to be a no-brainer that we would seek to join where there is little cost but a huge benefit, particularly to the institution. Councillor Gibson.
Could I just ask a question, please, Mayor? So there's no membership fees. Where does the council, which sounds like a good idea, where does it get its money from? Who's funding it?
There's a foundation called the Scanlon Foundation, And I think they have some funding from various state governments. A part of the organisation used to be the council's multicultural network.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion? I'll put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. That was supported unanimously. That brings us to the first brought forward item, item 10.2, the council meeting schedule. Mr McDonald, if you would come forward and address the council.
Thank you. I really mean that. I was, when I got Ian's letter, so we don't take this off my time, I looked at that and I went, oh my goodness, have I got to choose something to come off? And there was something, and that then leads me to get to, so I thank you very much for your agreement to that. I really appreciate that. I do. That doesn't necessarily mean I won't be any the less controversial. So anyway, look, let me just kick this item off, and I feel really guilty right now because I wanted to use the opportunity to put to all you councillors on the basis of that meeting schedule being changed. And Mayor, I'll just give you a synopsis, and if you feel it's inappropriate, then I'll run with that. But there were items I wanted to change, not least the number of items that one could come to speak to, which I'd completely forgotten about, let me tell you.
The reason that that the correspondence went back to you is there isn't a restriction. Our practice is that you can speak on as many items as you wish.
Oh, okay. But let me emphasise that I know that it would used to be a concern that people would just come here and somewhat filibuster, et cetera, and waste time, and that was it. Anyway, okay. Well, look, I just saw this as, on this particular item, as an opportunity to put to you, not necessarily for discussion this evening, but I wanted to come here and see, was this an opportunity I could create? And that was that the deadline, for example, to actually express interest in coming to speak is currently 10 o'clock. It used to be 4 o'clock. And I was going to put forward that perhaps it could go back to where it once was, or to 2 o'clock, or a compromise in that way. I just wanted to come and say that. The presentation time, when you sit here or present, it's extremely difficult to combine it and include it in the 3 minutes. So I am suggesting that perhaps that could be an exploration could be made as whether that could be increased to 5 minutes. I've got a few more items. Mayor, am I abusing the situation here, or are you happy to let me go? I can always write to Ian.
We have 29 seconds remaining on this item. And I'm conscious that you have other items, but
Yeah.
it sounds to me, if we might just,
I'll
it sounds
withdraw.
to me as if you're making some, I think, interesting and good submissions about changes to the code of meeting practice.
Yeah.
And what I might suggest to you is that the new council must adopt a new code of meeting practice. And I agree with you on much of what you said, and I think it would be important and probably timely that that we make that submission to the new council so that it can make those changes.
Okay. I'm happy with that.
Okay.
I'm happy with that.
I might, given the number of items that you're addressing, I may suspend meeting practice in this regard and allow you to stay at the table while we vote on this item, so that, because we're immediately bringing forward the next matter.
Sure.
Is there a mover? Councillor Berricky?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Lamb? Is there any discussion?
Could perhaps, Mayor, could we say here that the 2 points that were raised, and we could list them be considered by the new council. At least we've just got something on the record there.
Councillor Berricky, would you take on that a second point that a review of the code of meeting practice be referred to the new council? And is this
list those?
is the second?
May I just respond? I appreciate your support there, but I actually think it's better that they go in one block and wait to count. I really do believe that, and I can pop them through to Ian and to the general manager. So I do appreciate your support there, but I think it would be better, frankly, in that sense. That's all.
Councillor Gibson, could you turn off your microphone? Second, and prepared to take that on. If there's no discussion, I put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. The next item brought forward is item 10.4, the state significant development submission on the Walker Street, North Sydney site. Mr. McDonald, you've registered to speak on this item.
Thank you. First of all, I'm aware that this submission has already been put through to Department of Planning, and the reason on the 1st of this month. But I went through the positioning statement, and this is something I have some concerns over. I went through the positioning statement and associated documents where I've taken extracts from, and I'm going to be very blunt here. I feel in many ways, a lot of what is contained in that presentation is somewhat political, and I do question the position some members of the council executive, i.e. not councillors, the people that do a lot of the hard work, are taking political positions over issues. I can give you examples of that. There's a comment made in relation to the 15-year limitation on housing affordability. There's a comment made about the issue of parking, which is purely speculation. Now, I've always argued, as many of you will know, and my experience and my data analysis of traffic volumes and traffic densities are that my belief is, and you'll be aware of this, Mayor, because we've had the discussion before, that I believe that all the evidence suggests that having more car parking does not by default increase congestion. However, sort of at odds that seems to be. It doesn't, because over 72% of the existing population in North Sydney, let alone in Walker Street, will use public or active transport. And since we are talking about housing affordability as well, not everybody works on the network of public transport, and therefore they do need a motor vehicle. And I came to this chamber some time ago, and I won't refer to all the elements to that, where I argued the importance for a whole range. There were over 15 reasons why people may need to have a private motor vehicle to move around in. Having been an advocate for shared car in my street, where I've achieved having 2 of them and elsewhere in the area, I thought that this, and I'm being critical, but I thought overall this document that was presented to planning was full of holes and not one that focused on points of strength, but as I say, with lots of speculation. The idea that one could question the design capability of one building, architectural merit of one building, i.e. affordable, that was me knocking the thing.
I think that was that you.
My time, okay.
So
Well, look,
if you could,
I'll give you a summary. I think the document is poorly put together. It contains no reference to the landscape planners who would have come and spoken and looked at those trees. I think it's a really poor submission that's made and can be vastly improved. Notwithstanding, I don't agree with a lot of what it's trying to say. I'll rest it there. Happy to do that, and I can send this to anybody who would like it. In fact, I will.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
No, thank you.
Is there a mover? Councillor Berrigan.
Thank you, I'll move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Spencer. Is there any discussion? I'll put the item, all those in favour and those against, and that is carried. That brings us to the next item, which is item 10.5, advertising on council infrastructure. We're in the public forum, so when the time comes, I will come to you. Mr. McDonald, if you could begin your address.
That was, council, I didn't,
So it's the 10.5, advertising on council infrastructure, the citizen.
just go to that, and why did I put that down? I think I may have made an error in what I listed. Ah, the citizen jury. Okay, yeah, well, that's the key thing I'm bringing. I think the idea of having an investigation into how we might have what, I guess it's Ian that put that together, I'm not sure. It's a great idea. Mayor, we've spoken about things like that in the past. What I believe is what might that look like and how to go about that. And I had some thoughts that, first of all, to be controversial, I don't think that those members should be appointed by councillors necessarily. I think, so how are you going to find them? Well, work needs to be, what might it look like? And I've come here with a suggestion. I've only come across this today, and that is perhaps somehow we have some form of election process in, say, what might be 4 wards of the LGA, and then people put themselves forward and we have a discussion. But I really don't know what it might look like. That was just off. I worked on reading all these things today. I think it's a terrific idea, and I think it's wonderful. I also think, and here comes the big cracker, is that I've always wondered why in local government we don't almost have the same thing as a Senate estimates, where we call you guys up and ask you why this, why that, and make you accountable. But to be in that position, you need to have credibility from the community, and that really must come from some form of process where people say, yeah, we'll have that person. That's all. I think that's enough from me. I think it's a great idea, brilliant idea.
Thank you, councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a motion. Looking at the recommendation, there would be some amendments. So point 1 would be the same. And point 2 would be that a randomly selected 12-person citizen jury sitting for 1 weekend. And I hope we understand that wouldn't be for 48 hours. And then just simply removing the word not. So in other words, comma, be progressed at this time.
So, could I suggest that if you're going to do that, that it be, there be some reference to voluntary, because otherwise there's a cost to this that
Sure.
we're not aware of,
Sure.
although there is a staff cost.
Yeah, sure. So voluntary 12-person jury is citizen jury is fine. And point 3 would be slightly amended to say, if I can read my writing, that as part of the next review of Council's community engagement program, the inclusion of more citizen juries as part of future community engagement be explored.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Spenceley. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. So thanks to our staff for putting together this report. I just want to reiterate where this came from. And it was a case of me looking at what council has said in the past, the implementation of a no new advertising billboards policy that would cease all new planning applications for outdoor advertising of non-council information on council-owned property. So the reasoning behind this is because of a climate crisis and various ecological emergencies that we face. The marketing of consumer products increases demand and delays community behaviour that we need to undertake to lower our consumption levels as a society and return to operating as a sustainable society within safe environmental limits. Jurisdictions across the world are now acting to restrict outdoor advertising in various ways, including in France, the UK and the Netherlands. And I think council should be exploring all possible ways to protect our environment, including through the reduction in advertising consumer products. So just turning my attention a little bit to the report that was put together. I didn't agree with everything in there, and I want to point out some of the areas that I had some questions about or different views. A citizen jury does not need to be 30 to 45 people, and it does not need to be huge, complex issues. Like our court system, sometimes you deal with a simple issue, sometimes you deal with a very complex issue. So I just wanted to dispel that firstly. It says that the use of citizen juries is not common in New South Wales local government due to largely the cost and resource requirements. I don't see that as being particularly relevant here, only for the more complicated issues like the City of Sydney, the future of the city, massive issue, and they have to delve into many things over many weeks. This is not a complex issue in that sense. Our legal system uses citizen juries every day. And that is about delegating power to the people. That is about letting go and saying, we do want a genuine opportunity for our community to have a direct say in what we're doing. So the report spoke about the use of citizen juries is consistent with the principles of participatory democracy, in which insights can be given to help elected decision makers make more informed decisions. This is a step beyond that. This is a community deciding. This is us delegating power to our community of randomly selected residents. So it's participatory democracy is a big umbrella, but this is direct democracy. This is straight decision making, and in my view, this is real community representation and engagement. I was reading a document from the Victorian Local Governance Association. They said that the City of Darebin had run a citizens jury, and that, quote, there is evidence that the juries have been successfully staged for a cost in the order of $10,000. So again, for those who read the report, saying it was $50,000, $60,000, I just wanted to give you that alternative as well. So obviously the cost varies very considerably depending on the complexity of the issue and the time that you sit. I think that a jury is really useful in, when a council wants to know what an informed representative group of people think about a particular issue. Often, I think we do consultation well at this council, and I think it is improving. But this goes another step. This goes to the next level. This really empowers our community directly, and it would say to our community, you can make a real decision on something really important, and we're going to give you the pros and cons over a weekend, and you're going to take part in that direct decision. Whether that is a binding decision or not, I think it'd be a brave council that has 12 of our citizens go through all of the information and then say, sorry, we're not going to implement that. So do we want real empowerment of our community to the next level? I think we do. So we should think a little bit outside the square, just a touch less corporate and a touch more community. That's my view on things. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson, you wish to speak?
Look, first of all, I want to ask a question. I might ask William and then I'll ask our CEO. This is a lovely idea, but I just don't possibly see how we're going to make a random selection. I just can't see how that would work. And I will share my concerns, and I've shared them many times.
Just quickly, what I suggest is you ask the question and we'll allow the councillor to answer.
Councillor Burke, could you give me any idea when my microphone's gone?
I'm sorry.
Mr. McDonald, you turn.
Thank you.
If you could give me some idea how on earth we could do a random selection. And this is, but I will say I have concerns about how people have been picked for the committees in the past.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
question, councillor Gibson. Market research companies do random selection of people in the community quite regularly, so I would suggest it would be something along those lines. The council may have a process that it may use, but it would be randomly selected and representative statistically.
And then can I
Do
ask,
you want to ask the same question?
yes, I want to ask, yes, and again, I will state, I have been very concerned about representations of other committees that we've had. And I will say, Mayor, I want to know how this can be avoided again, the neutral bay.
Well,
No.
you've asked when.
All right, well, I'll do.
Directly, and then you can.
Good, and then I'll say my
Through you,
piece.
Madam Mayor, as an example, during the community engagement undertaken for our recent strategy work, we had a company called Taverner Research that selected the 60 odd people that participated in our weekend workshops. That was at a cost of, from memory, about $8,000. The reason that that number was chosen was so that it was statistically representative of the community.
And were most of those people who haven't engaged with council before?
That's right.
And again, I am asking this question.
Do you have other questions?
No, I've finished the
Now-
questions, I'm just going to.
Okay,
make
then
some
we'll
comments.
resume the debate. Councillor Gibson has the floor.
Yes, I will share my concerns about consultation processes that have happened during this council and how disappointed that I have been with some. We had the really important neutral bay streetscape new strategic plan being formed, and we selected 10 community representatives. Now, 9 out of the 10 of those were precinct members who had a say regularly on many things. And I'd have to say, Mayor, one of those 10 was someone that ran in your team for election, and one was someone who gave you very visible and financial support in that.
No, I'm sorry, that is just not true.
That
I don't
is
know,
true.
I don't know what you're talking about in
Okay,
terms of
well,
financial
that-
support, and that is just untrue. I'd ask that you get on
No,
with
no,
arguing
I
the
am,
point
I'm
and not
pointing
the
out, they're
personal
talking-
attack on the chair.
It's not a personal
It
attack,
is.
I'm pointing out an absolute fact.
It is
And
not
I-
a fact, so could I ask you to
Meredith
continue?
Trevelyan Jones.
No,
was on that
and
group.
well, if that's the case, there is absolutely no financial relationship between myself and Meredith Trevelyan Jones. and I'd
John
ask that you
Lucas-
be-
John Lucas
No,
was on
and I-
it.
and I
He
would-
was a member of your team. Mayor.
Councillor Gibson, I'd ask
Yeah.
that you withdraw.
He was a member of your, he was a member of your team.
No,
Mayor.
he wasn't. I ran in St Leonard's ward.
But he was a member of the Real
Councillor
Independent.
Gibson,
Well,
I'm not arguing with you about this.
No.
Would you, I'm
the
asking you under the
truth-
code of
truth
meeting.
is
No, that is not the
uncomfortable.
truth. It is not the truth, and it's not, nor is it uncomfortable.
So you're saying that John
Councillor,
Lucas.
Councillor Gibson, I am calling you again, I'm calling you to order.
It's
When the
public,
chair
it's,
speaks,
it's
when
in the
chair
public,
speaks.
and I know you've cut
You
me
were
off
meant
so
to-
many times during
No,
this council,
Councillor
Mayor.
Gibson, you,
If things get awkward, you just cut me off.
No,
Anyway, it's a proven fact.
it is not a
And
proven
I
fact,
will-
it's a
look, I will-
lie
I-
that you are promulgating, and I'm again going to call you.
Well,
to
we
order
had
and
John
ask-
Lucas, who was a real independent, was randomly
Council-
selected during a
Council-
group of 10 people.
Councillor
Sorry,
Gibson.
Mayor, not good enough.
Councillor
Meredith
Gibson.
Trevelyan Jones,
Councillor
who
Gibson.
ran around handing
Councillor
out
Gibson,
posters
again,
for
there
you.
were, that is absolutely false.
Oh,
Absolutely.
she didn't run around supporting the real, oh,
Councillor Gibson,
Mayor.
Councillor
This is-
Gibson,
Mayor,
again.
this is getting very uncomfortable.
No, it's not
This is,
uncomfortable,
I just
it's
want to point
again
out,
with
this is the
Councillor
sort of,
Gibson.
I do have my 3 minutes. This is the sort
No,
of
you are
consultation
fine like the rest of the
processes
councillors.
we
abide
have
by the
had
code of
on
meeting.
this council. I will
Again.
support councillor Burke's motion if I am absolutely sure that we will engage an independent research team to select the participants. Because otherwise we end up with the same old story. People that have been picked for their political persuasion and their point of view. So I will vote for that, councillor Burke. I think it's a good amendment. And now that I've found out how we will select those people, and I think it would be worth $8,000 to make sure people are randomly selected, and I hope we do that more often, quite frankly.
May I have an amendment?
Councillor Bertie.
Thank you, Mayor. It is that council received and note the report and that this,
Could you just wait until it goes on to the screen
Yep.
so that everyone understands what it is that you're moving? Thank you. So the same number one.
yep, council received, and that this matter be deferred to a councillor briefing in the new council.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Welch.
Thank you. I'll just briefly speak to that amendment. I think the discussion around the table clearly shows that there is no, that there is errors in the report according to councillor Burke. There's unsureness about how this is going to be. And so we're in no position to inflict this onto a new council. It is also part of our community engagement and should be considered as part of the whole community engagement strategy. And finally, we are in no position to be spending any extra money at this point in time on something without looking at it from a holistic perspective and whether this is something that we can look at for more than one issue. And we shouldn't be putting on a burdening the next council so close to the election with something that they may not wish to pursue, or they may wish to pursue it in another way. And so we'll receive the report and then we'll defer to a councillor briefing and ask that the CEO arrange for someone who has been involved in citizen juries to come and explain and go through how they could be used in local government. I do have concerns with this idea that a citizen jury is a decision maker. The only decision maker is the council. And so we need to go through the legalities of that, and I don't think we have enough information at this point.
Could I ask the mover of the amendment and the seconder whether you would take on something, which is, I think that it would be useful to give in principle support to the randomly selected voluntary 12-person citizen jury in item 2, that council give it in principle support and then defer, because my concern is that if it is just deferred, then it doesn't proceed, and certainly that's the intention that Councillor Burke is putting forward, and it isn't that far from what's already happened, certainly in the most recent community engagement that we've done. The only reason I'm asking you to take that on is I'm concerned that we have no idea about what the cost of this will be, not just in the random selection of the jury, but in the council staff time if it's confined to a weekend. So would you be prepared to take that on?
I'm happy to take that on, Mayor, and if we could, if that's okay with councillor Welch. And also the matter be deferred to a councillor briefing, the new council, and that the briefing include costings.
Councillor Welch, you're prepared to take both those on? Is there any, Councillor Spenceley, do you wish to discuss the amendment?
Yeah, I was going to speak on the motion, but I'm happy to speak just briefly on the amendment. I don't support the amendment. I'm going to see certainly valid points for delaying it. I think sometimes in local government we overcomplicate things, or in government in general we overcomplicate things. This is a pretty standard practice and a pretty simple practice to get 12 people together to ask their view on something. I think in general we're overcomplicating the issue of having less advertising, and that this council itself should make a call on that. One that I've agreed with Councillor Burke that for different reasons, which is I think it's about a community feel. It's about protecting our streetscapes, and I think over advertising is not conducive to that village and community feel that we want to progress. But that said, I really support this because the sooner we as a council set the bar as being accountable to the ratepayers and really reinforce that, the better. And I think this is a great way to say to ratepayers and to our community that we're here, we listen, and we'll do what you think's important, not necessarily what we think's important. And I really support getting on and doing this. I think this would be a great initial initiative for the next council to see the review and the reports and the response. And again, it's 12 people, it's voluntary. Hopefully it's quite a simple project if we in local government don't overcomplicate it. Thank you.
Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the idea of these citizen juries. I think it would be an excellent initiative, but there are some questions that need to be addressed. And we are facing an election with a new council. So I do have some concern about presenting something to a new council as a fait accompli. I do have some questions which I think would be properly addressed with a council briefing and with a consultant to come along and give us some advice. And someone who's had experience with these citizen juries to come as well in the new council, whoever is elected. My questions relate to the cost. Even with I guess the word voluntary was selected as a means of ensuring a reduction in the cost, and the fact that it would be on a weekend. Also the selection of issues to be considered by such a jury. And also perhaps there needs to be some comparison with our current consultative mechanism to with precincts and area consultation committees and the outgoing community consultation process. I think that needs to be the relationship of these juries to the system that we currently have of community consultation needs to be addressed. And I think that if we do defer it to the new council with proper briefing, we can get the system. I personally think that it would be a good thing to be adopted, and I think that the questions that people have would be properly addressed, and we can do it methodically if we defer to the next council.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gibson.
Look, I support what Councillor Spenceley has just said. And again, look, Councillor Burke's come up with a good idea. Of course we can do this now. And it doesn't forever bind the new council to push this forward, as we saw at the first meeting of this council. A new council can just rescind things that they don't like. They can just take a look at it and say, nah, we don't like this idea, scrap it. So we can do it. Why do we keep putting off good ideas? This is a good idea, and for once, I think because of the system being proposed, we would end up with community input from people that we don't usually interact with. Because as I say, my concern with this council is we interact and get opinion back and consultation back by and get submissions back by the same people all the time. And it's simply ridiculous to say it's too close to an election. At the last meeting, we shoved through sent it out for consultation, a social media policy that I suggested. I moved an amendment saying we should do that in the new council. But the mayor used her casting vote and said, no, let's do it now. So come on, Councillor Burke's had a good idea. He's put it forward. Let's just vote with Councillor Burke and stop finding reasons to put things off.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I want to agree with both Councillor Berardine and Councillor Santer. I agree. I think we should have a briefing, and certainly the points that Councillor Santer made regarding bringing in the issues of the other consultation methods that we already use. A briefing is nothing but a good thing.
Are there any other speakers on the amendment? I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? That's lost. That takes us back to the motion. You have your right of reply if you wish to.
Could I move an amendment to the motion, Mayor?
Yep.
It's only a small word, but council gives in principle support to a randomly selected and representative voluntary 12-person citizen.
You accept that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for your feedback. And Mr. McDonald. So I won't, go into much further detail, but the point was made that we are happy to burden, or not happy to burden the future council. Yeah, there's been sort of some wavering on that in recent weeks. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. But as Councillor Gibson said, the next council may look at this and say, no, thanks. So we're trying to put through new ideas here. We're trying to be a little bit innovative. You know, the world is what we make it, basically. Let's try something different. Let's not kick the can down the road. Thanks.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour? That is carried. That brings us now to Mr. McDonald, item, the next item is the notice of motion 11.1. Councillor Welch's motion on art installation honouring local women. Mr. McDonald, if you would wish to address council.
Hi. This, I came here because I had some questions to ask. And if I appear to be a devil's advocate, I don't really take that position. I think this is a great idea. The question I have was, I wonder whether you had any ideas about the sort of artworks that you're thinking of, whether paintings, whether it's sculpture or something of that nature. So I was interested in that. And the council produced a report. You might probably have something already, which I think would be interesting to look at. And here comes the cracker. And I say this with so much caution. Why? And I'm open to be really told why, Davey. This is why I suggest that it be about women and only women, because I'm thinking there must be a lot of people out there in society that aren't women that also have contributed. And having said that, I went looking to see and try and Google specifically for North Sydney women and can find nothing. That doesn't mean they don't exist. I mean, we need that being exposed and brought to us. So I came along just to ask those couple of questions, and I worried whether some part of society might feel excluded from that. And that's as best as I can explain it to you without seemingly a slighted male or something like that, because I'm not, I promise you. So I just wondered whether you had a bit more detail of what it might look like. That's all I came here to ask for on that one.
Thank you. That takes us to the item. Councillor Welch, would you care to move your motion?
Yes, I would like to move the motion.
Okay, and it's seconded by Councillor Spenceley.
Okay,
You have the floor.
just to answer your questions, this has been actually done on other councils. I'm on the Australian Local Government Women's Association.
Oh, right.
On the executive for New South Wales. And so I'm pulling ideas from all over the place. And I'd like to leave it for the council staff who are much more knowledgeable on how to, you know, develop art projects, etc. But I think it would be really terrific and the initiative could hold great significance for our community. The creation of an art installation in the North Sydney local government area dedicated to celebrating the contributions of notable and inspiring women, both past and present. The motion is tasked staff with preparing a report that will explore the possibilities of this project. The report will investigate and highlight the achievements and significance of influential women who have shaped and continue to shape our community. The art installation is more than just a tribute, it's an opportunity to share the powerful stories of local women whose contributions have enriched North Sydney. By bringing these stories to light, we aim to enhance the community's experience of the space, fostering a sense of belonging and pride. Such an installation will serve as an inspiration to current and future generations, encouraging everyone to see themselves as integral parts of North Sydney's vibrant community. It is a reminder that our community is built on the remarkable achievements of individuals who have dared to make a difference. I look forward to seeing this project come to life and to celebrating the incredible women who have contributed so much to our local area. And I ask you, councillors, to please support this motion and commit to making North Sydney a place where stories are shared and legacies are honoured.
Councillor Gibson and then
Yeah.
Councillor Spenceley.
I would just like to say thanks, Councillor Walsh. I wholeheartedly support this. And at first I thought, oh, is this a little bit like Davey McDonald? Will some groups feel left out here? But if you think about anyone who's interested in art and art history, we see over and over again that women have always been underrepresented. And I was at a talk, was actually overseas, and I went to a talk in Paris about some famous artists there. And some of the masters were married to, you know, artists who were as good or perhaps even better than they were. And they always went totally unrecognised. They were hardly ever mentioned. They were just the, you know, the housekeepers, they were the muse, the whatever. So historically, women have been always underrepresented in art. And I think now's the time for a bit of catch up. I agree with this, Councillor Walsh, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencerley.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I really support this and thank Councillor Welsh for coming up with a great idea. To Mr. McDonald's point, I think to promote one group doesn't mean to exclude another. And I think that's probably an idiom that often gets forgotten nowadays. I think the fact that you can't find any notable women from North Sydney means this is in fact an excellent idea.
No, that's why I agree.
Because I'm sure
Yeah,
there's some
yeah.
fantastic ones. And what a wonderful way to celebrate and to encourage a future generation of women is to say that, you know, North Sydney really honours females. And as a father of a young lady, I think it'll be incredible for her to walk down the street and see such an inspiring, I guess, installation. And I just do make a point of order that it's not a bit related to art. It's about celebrating. It's an art installation which is celebrating, female achievements in the area. So well done, great, and very inspiring. Thank you.
Do you wish to exercise a right of reply?
No, I think that's.
I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. That brings us to the next brought forward item 11.2, Councillor Santa's motion on alcohol-related domestic violence. Mr. McDonald, do you wish to make a submission?
Yes,
to council?
please. This is a very difficult subject. This is a very difficult subject for me. It's best, and I came here because I wanted to broaden this. I thoroughly support this, but I wanted to support it because that's me. And those of you who know me for working with Zara in the DV area, I'm very much involved in this. And I wanted to make a couple of points because I then went researching when I looked at this motion today. And my concern was that bringing people together, would it just be a meeting of feel-good, virtuous signalling, and so on and so forth. And I then went to find out, who are the groups that could be involved in this, and that maybe rather than bring them here, perhaps there's a go structure that goes to them. How can we support you? Because I know where the refugees are in North Sydney, for example, and they include one particular for children. And I just wanted to remind everybody that isn't just related to alcohol. Alcohol can be the trigger, the gun that goes off. And I wanted to remind everybody, there are economic factors, environmental factors, and especially they talk about the effects on children. There's also elderly abuse, economic abuse, and so on.
Would you like a moment, Mr. McDonald?
No, let me press through. And I think it's important. I mean, I listed all of them here. And I think it's important that we understand and everybody knows all the issues that occur around that. And one of them, of course, comes up in terms of affordable housing and refugees. And I'll share this with you. I was so annoyed with one DA that came before this council a long time ago when it was the opportunity to provide safe haven, and it was rejected by the local community who couldn't get it. And as I said to them, I can't tell you that it might be used for this or for that, but you're opposing that. And it's really important. And that, yeah, that's all I can say. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for being really brave. to
I mean, I was brought up in an
address us.
orphanage and in care after that, so I can tell you all, you know, so,
Thank you, and particularly thank you for your participation. It's a difficult subject.
yeah, I need Zara here with me.
Councillor Santa.
I'll second the motion.
I'd like to-
Moved by councillor Santa, seconded by councillor Beregi. Without debate, or you have.
I just a few words, Mayor, thank you. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. I really welcome the fact that someone has had personal experience in this area. And give us an expert opinion. Thank you for the presentation that you gave. Something that I think is of such great importance that we need to address it at a council level. The thing that really brought it to my attention was reading the Herald article, which stated that statistics showed that this vicious, evil form of violence doesn't correlate with low-income households, but disproportionately with wealthier suburbs, and North Sydney is top of the list.
Yeah.
It's sad to read something like that. The highest proportion of domestic violence involving alcohol was in North Sydney. One of my responsibilities on council that I've welcomed and I've been honoured to be able to do it was to be our representative on the North Shore Area Police Command, liaison with them, including attending regular meetings that they hold at Chatswood Police Station. They are willing to meet with us to discuss this issue. They want to help, they want to be involved. And I know from my personal involvement with North Sydney Police Station that the people there are committed to this, to finding solutions to it. And so I think if we could organise a round table involving the police, involving social groups, involving Mr. McDonald personally, if you could come and help us to find solutions for this problem. It wouldn't be just virtue signalling, but I know that it could be, but we've got to avoid that, and we've got to definitely find solutions for this problem. So I think I would commend this to the council for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Spenceley.
Yes, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. McDonald, for sharing your story. At Airtasker, we used to deliver alcohol, and we deliver alcohol, obviously any time of night. And we had a number of stories where, delivery of alcohol late in the evening led and correlated very highly to domestic violence. We commissioned a study and we stopped delivering alcohol for that reason. Alcohol and difficult domestic situations is not a mix that is conducive to a good relationship, to good health. So, anything that this council can do, we have a problem in the area. It's difficult for a council to resolve some of these issues, but what we can do is put people together, make this a focus, and hopefully there's more that the council can do, and maybe we can even run, some kind of counselling or outreach programs, with new budgets and a new council into the future. So yeah, again, fantastic motion, and wholeheartedly support it. We need to assist our community to be better and do better. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Just before I return it to your right of reply, I'd like to thank you for bringing it, and thank you to Mr. McDonald. But I'd like to thank you for bringing it, because the fact is that that article just brought into stark relief what we know is that North Sydney and pretty much every local government area in the country is undergoing an epidemic of violence against women and children. And one of the things that I think councils do well is this isn't directly the remit to provide services in that way to community, even though we often overstep the mark and do it. But what councils do well is that we have the helicopter view of what's happening and who's operating within our community. And I think one of the great strengths is about bringing those particular services and stakeholders together and starting and keeping the conversation going about outcomes for our community. So thank you. And on that basis, I support it. You have a right of reply if you wish to exercise it. On that basis, I put the motion. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. And that brings us to the last matter that Mr. McDonald has brought forward, which is Councillor Santa's motion on the Warringah Freeway rooftop park. Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, still collect myself a bit. The reason I wanted to speak to this was I felt that, unbeknownst perhaps to Councillor Santa, this concept had come to council before. And I think it's such a shame, and I may be rather harsh here, but it, for me, shows a breakdown, a lack of collaboration, because it was in fact, and just so people know that this is your original document that you presented at a meeting, which I've always kept, but it was Gilly Gibson that was the first person to put this forward. And it's such a shame, I've got a document here dated 2018 August, and it first came to light in 2017. And Fitzsimmons, the rugby journalist, actually expressed interest in this project. And I wanted to come here and say that it's such a pity that you're not aware of that, and that collaboration is not there. And here's an example where hopefully the next council we can do better. And having lost my notes, I did have something written about it. I would oppose it, and I'll be blunt about it. I think it's a great idea on the one hand, but I think similarly, when I made all my presentations to have the beaches link stopped, the money that would go into that, I think, should be spent by the state government elsewhere where it's really needed in terms of road repairs after the floods and the bushfires. So I've come here to emphasise that's where I think the emphasis should be. And I think it's a missed opportunity for those who wanted to have something like this while the reconstruction of the Warringah Freeway was going on, which incidentally was totally unnecessary. And I just wanted to come and express that to you primarily on, it's such a pity. On the one hand, it came here, you had an idea, yeah, people don't collaborate. We need to do better in the next council. And I really think that the dollars should be spent elsewhere in the state of New South Wales. So I would suggest people oppose it. I'm sure that people won't, but I really believe that. And I just needed to come and tell you that one-on-one, that was my view. I opposed it then, I oppose it now. There are better things for the money to be spent on. And I think as an engineering proposition, I think it's going to cost an awful lot more than that. I'm done.
Councillor, I'm sorry, Mr. McDonald, thank you for your participation on all 6 of those items. And as you now don't have more items to speak to, I'm free to stay into the public gallery, but thank you for your participation.
Thank you. May I just make one comment? Zara's female, she's an outstanding female. Maybe there could be her in the art project somewhere. I'm pulling your leg. I just had to say that. I wanted to say that. And thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Santa, your motion.
I'd like to propose an amendment to
Yeah,
as well as the point 1 there, point 2, that the area of St Leonard's Park land between Ridge Street and Bon Andrews Oval, part of which has been temporarily resumed by Transport for New South Wales for the Warringah Freeway upgrade project, when made good for restoration to council on completion of the project, as promised by Transport for New South Wales, be levelled and terraced to the freeway to enable the area to be returned as parkland for use by the North Sydney community.
Seconded by councillor Spenceley. Could I ask both mover and seconder that you refer this to council, to the next council meeting? And the reason for consideration in a report that will be coming to the next council meeting in response to the landscape, place and design plan that is currently on exhibition by Transport for New South Wales. So the reason that I'm asking you to refer these ideas and the whole of your motion for consideration in that report that will go to the 26th of August council meeting is I attended Bay Precinct, and Paul Walter and the subcommittee on the Warringah Freeway Upgrade and Western Harbour Tunnel presented a really compelling suggestions about expansion of green space that's currently before Transport for New South Wales is currently community engaging on. And I think that the opportunity to do some real advocacy on this will be in that submission on something that has to be delivered as part of the projects.
That would be the 26th August.
The 26th of August meeting. That's what I would suggest is that the consideration of your motion as finally put be referred to council staff for consideration in the report on the submission on the landscape, place and design plan for the project.
And not vote on it tonight, is that?
Yes, that's what I'm suggesting, because the fact is that there's something happening now with Transport for New South Wales. They have on exhibition the plan that has to be implemented at the end of the project. That is the opportunity for us to secure additional green space and open space. So these ideas are great, I think, to look at every opportunity. But in terms of practicality, we, on behalf of our community, need to put something that's achievable, I think, directly to Transport for New South Wales as part of that process. And it is conditioned to be delivered. The place landscape and design plan is conditioned to be delivered under the existing consent. So what I'm putting to you is something that is about a practical outcome in the context of which we're operating right this minute. But feel free not to take that on. That's something I'm asking of you.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm not sure what Councillor Spencer with you, but as long as it would not prejudice the chances of it getting up, the delay of 2 weeks, or it would not prejudice the possibility of it.
Well, we have to put in a submission. We got it. My understanding is that we've had an extension of time. It's that the plan is on exhibition until the 26th of August. And our community expects, as we have always, that we put in a submission on it. But it's about what are the practical, actual arrangements at the end of the project in these vicinities, and it's in the vicinity of every one of those parks. It's on exhibition now. So I think we should put forward a submission that is able to be achieved on the ground, because that's what they're consulting on now.
So, Mayor, in that case, could we potentially just amend it and make a decision here that we direct council staff to including their submission in increasing in green space, including the points listed by Councillor Santo. That way we make the decision tonight. The staff are clear what their submission should be related to, and we've made some progress.
So if the mover and the seconder want to include that, the council include in the report on the submission.
Yep.
That's taken on. So you have the floor for your motion. Yep, you have the floor.
Oh, sorry. If I could just quickly speak to it, I agree with this deferral. First of all, on the amendment that I proposed at point 2, I'd like to thank the residents who came to see me about this. They are concerned about that land that's been resumed, what we used to lovingly call the dog run, down at the end of St Leonard's Park. And they had this proposal, given that the former exit ramp onto Falcon Street off the Warringah Freeway has now got a big building on the top of it while they finish off the tunnel. That something needs to be done with that area when it's when they no longer need it, and that by extending a bit the St Leonard's Park, we would actually adding to the area of St Leonard's Park. So that's the origin of point number 2. That's not me. That's a bunch of residents who came to see me about this issue, and I think it's an excellent idea. Addressing Mr. McDonald, and I thank you very much for the points that you've made. I have spoken to Councillor Gibson. I was aware that Councillor Gibson had an idea also, and I think we've been speaking to each other about this rooftop park idea. And I was originally proposing, as Mr. McDonald said, at a precinct meeting, a Haybury precinct meeting, but Mr. McDonald rightly said at the time that if we were to put up that idea of a rooftop park at that stage, it could be giving the Transport for New South Wales a soft option, that the freeway was not a done deal, that it was possible that it did not go ahead if we have enough community opposition to it, and therefore putting up the idea of a rooftop park might prejudice the chances of success against the and rightly so. It was a good point to make, and so I removed the idea for consideration. But I thought behind this that now that this freeway is going, it's definitely going ahead. There's nothing we can do to stop it. But although Beaches Link is not included in it now, but the other two parts are the tunnel and the freeway. That now is a good time to be raising this issue. There are those who might argue that this is pie in the sky stuff, that the cost would be prohibitive. My rough back the envelope projection, and I'm not an engineer, I'm an economist, but that my rough estimate will be around the $100 million mark. But we're asking the state government to do this. They're spending around $20 billion on the tunnel and the freeway for the benefit of cars. Why can't they spend around 100 million for the benefit of the people? Is my belief on this thing. Those people living in this area have been divided since the early 60s by the building of that freeway. I liken it sometimes to the Berlin Wall. And Mr. Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, please tear down this wall. Well, I say, Mr. Minns, please put a roof over the freeway and to reconnect the two parts of our local government area that have been divided by this freeway. And we also have less parkland than any other Sydney suburban area. Not only that, but the Warringah Freeway upgrade project has further reduced our parkland and destroyed many hundreds of mature trees. Furthermore, it's been discriminatory in its application. On the other side, on the Rozelle side, we've got a new park being established, and a lot more work done to preserve the environment there for the citizens around that Rozelle area, including the putting of the maintenance sheds underground, whereas here they're well above ground. And I think we have surely a strong moral argument for the establishment of something like this. There's still time, I think, for Transport for New South Wales to overcome this anomaly and give us back the parkland they've taken off us. So I'm in favour of the deferral, but as long as we can keep the momentum going on it, I'll be very much in favour of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson, did you wish to speak?
Yes, thanks, Councillor Santa, and thanks to Mr. McDonald too. I appreciate him pointing out all the hard work that I put in months and months meeting with so many state departments trying to get such a project going. But I'd have to say, you know, the idea that it will cost 100 million is it was hundreds and hundreds of millions. And the discussions that I got into, it was, well, we could do this, but there'd have to be development to offset the cost. So that's the way it went, that we'd that if you got that extra land, then you have to accept extra housing and extra developments as well. So but it's, it's always really interesting to keep exploring these ideas, and they can be brought up, ideas can be brought up over and over again, and sometimes they're just brought up at a time when there's someone in charge that has the will to take the idea and run with it. And I would also say Mr. McDonald's been very intuitive and informative here tonight, and I would have to say, coming to the close of this council, that I've sat on 6 councils now, and this is the most uncollaborative council that I've sat on. There's been no sharing of ideas, there's no, and I still think council dinners were a good idea, where everyone sat around, had discussions and had chats about things. This council, there's been one group of councillors going off for dinners and the others were never invited, which I think set a pretty bad.
Again, I'm going to call you to
standard.
order with your
Well,
inaccurate
Well, that has
characterisation.
That has
In
happened.
any event.
So
If you would
the
stick to the
collaboration,
matter which is under debate.
the collaboration has been non-existent, and our community have suffered because of that. Voting has been, I think, made along very political lines, and good ideas have just been swept under the carpet when a good old-fashioned chat around a dinner table might have produced a way forward. So I'll vote for this, and we'll we can, I think councils in decades to come will still be bringing this up, but I think it will happen one day. It might involve some development to cover the cost, but I think it will happen. And the idea of course, we would never have done a freeway like this anymore. It would have been tunnelled, and both sides of Neutral Bay here would have been united. So I think it will happen at some stage. I don't know. I don't know if it will happen in any of our lifetimes, but I think it will happen. And of course, it's a good idea. So thanks, Councillor Sandra.
Councillor Spencer, did you wish to speak? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Birchall.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I've got a clarifying question. So that I understand the motion as it stands, did council include in its report on the submission?
Well, the reason that is that we have to resolve on the submission ourselves.
Yeah, and which submission? Can we just clarify which submission?
The submission, then that should be on to Transport for New South Wales, on the submission to Transport for New South Wales on the place design and landscape plan currently on exhibition in relation to the Western Harbour Tunnel and Good Freeway upgrade.
Great, thank you, Mayor. That's the clarification I was looking for. So the council. Great. So I've got some concerns about this. Some of those concerns expressed by Councillor Gibson. I think the $100 million figure is very hopeful at very best. If we're spending the best part of that on a bike ramp in Kirribilli, my view is that we're looking at $500 million
Probably,
or more for this type of structure. I did hear of this proposal some years ago when then Mayor Gibson mentioned it, and I was similarly sort of querying the project for a few reasons, including environmental. I just wonder what it would be like having a park above a very, very busy road with quite toxic fumes. That was a concern of mine at the time, and it remains a concern of mine, not to mention the cost. And it is an example of what I call diseconomies of scale. So as you grow as a business or as a society, you reach economies of scale where a certain number of people or products are made, and you can make that with good economies of scale quite cheaply. But then when you keep growing your business or society, you reach diseconomies of scale, and the per unit cost of delivering infrastructure or delivering a product starts to go up, and it becomes less and less profitable. So I'm talking in this case of a square metre of park. The square metre of park at St Thomas Rest Park would have been virtually free to us back in the day, whereas this is now many dollars per square metre, and means that our rates or taxes need to go up. So there are some big financial questions as well as environmental questions. So unfortunately, I wouldn't support advocating for this at this stage until we got some of those questions clarified.
Well, thank you. Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And that is carried. That takes us, yeah, it's recorded. That takes us back to the rest of the agenda. Item 9.1, Audit Risk and Improvement Committee minutes. Councillor Beregi.
I'll move the recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Lamb. Put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. 10.1, Expenses and Facilities, the Mayor and Councillors. Moved by Councillor Beregi, seconded by Councillor Welsh.
Point of order, Mayor. It was at the last meeting, I made an amendment to remove the postage stamps, which doesn't seem to have been included.
The mover take on the postage stamp provision be excluded.
Happy to, Mayor.
And seconded by the seconder. I'll put the item. All those in favour? And that is carried. Item 10.3, recognition Freddie named. Councillor Beregi. Councillor Beregi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank council staff for the report. And it's lovely to see that we're going to be recognising so many people. And if we could just make sure that a copy of the report and the resolution be provided to Freddie Lane's grandmother, who is in the US and was unable to join us tonight.
Granddaughter.
Granddaughter.
There we go. So that was moved by Councillor Beregi, seconded by Councillor Gibson. I'll put the item. All those in favour?
Here we go.
That is carried. 10.6, West Street Stage 2 cycling. Councillor Welsh, moved by, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Do you wish to speak?
Yes. Okay, the West Street Cycling, Walking, and Streetscape Upgrade Stage 2 initiative aims to enhance the active transport infrastructure along West Street, extending from Ridge Street in North Sydney to Amherst Street in Camaray. This route is a pivotal component of our council's North Sydney Integrated Cycling Strategy, which was adopted in 2014. An extensive public consultation process was conducted from December 5th, 2023 to March 3, 2024. During this period, 271 submissions were received from our community. I am pleased to report that the majority of the feedback, 75%, was in support of the proposed design. Minor adjustments were made to the design post-consultation. The proposed upgrades will bring significant benefits to our community by improving connectivity, enhancing safety, and enriching the overall streetscape amenity. This project aligns with our broader strategic objectives to promote sustainable transport and enhance urban environments in North Sydney, as outlined in our integrated cycling strategy. And to quote Carolyn New and reiterated by Tony Stanley and others, the implementation of Stage 2 West Street Bike Path will enable people who are less experienced in cycling, as well as other riders, to ride safely to North Sydney CBD and the Victoria Cross Metro Station. This includes the opportunity for students, and we have many students at the many schools on and around West Street, to ride safely to school. North Sydney Council is making strides toward a more connected, safer, and environmentally friendly community. Thank you to the council staff for your hard work on this important project. I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Put the item. Oh, Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I was in support of it as well. I note that in the public consultation process, 75% expressed support for this project, and of the residents, the local residents, 63% support. And I'd like to relate my experience. I've cycled down West Street regularly to get onto the Willoughby Park track and around Lane Cove and back. and it is dangerous the way it is at the moment. It's a heavily shaded area, and unfortunately, a lot of cyclists don't wear high-vis clothing. I myself, when I've been driving, I've nearly collected cyclists inadvertently, and I've nearly been collected by drivers when I've been cycling. So I think building a dedicated cycle path will ensure a much safer experience for all parties, both drivers and cyclists. I also note the net loss of 3 on-street parking spaces, but we have introduced an initiative which is being pursued at the moment by residents in West Street to have the area between Carlo Street and Ridge Street be changed from an unrestricted parking area to a restricted parking area, which will increase parking availability for cars arriving. And I'm sure that the businesses in the area, particularly the restaurants and the coffee shops that are there, and there are a lot of them, will welcome that development, because it will enhance the amount of the clientele using them if they can park there. I note the concern expressed at Havebury Precinct meeting about cyclists continuing to use the road on Ridge Street rather than the cycle path, and I agree with that concern. But I have, living on Ridge Street as I do, I've noticed that there are more cyclists using the cycle path that has been built there, and I'm sure that when this second part of the West Street cycleway is completed, that will increase that trend upwards. So for that reason, I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I used to live in West Street and worked in North Sydney, and I attempted to ride a bike once. I did it once exactly. It was dangerous. It was, you know, I'm not a strong cyclist. So I mean, surprising, maybe looking at me, but in general, I think there's a little bit of community complaint that the cycleways don't get used as much. That the loss of off-street parking is not a fair trade-off. But I think the reality is as you link these routes together, they become more popular, more usable, and I think that this is common sense, is to make this route as connected as possible and usable as possible. And gosh, would I welcome to see students riding to school in a safe environment like that. What a fantastic for our area, which is pretty rare. So yeah, I also note an incredible amount of feedback from people, emails today and over the last few days, asking for support on this one. And very happy to support it, even though I may not use it. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Do you wish to exercise your right of reply? Put the motion. All those in favour? And that is carried. That brings us to 10.7, outdoor dining goods on footpath policy. Is there a mover?
I'll move the recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Lamb. Is there any discussion? Put the item. All those in favour? And that is carried.
Vote against that. Thanks, Mary.
10.8, Sunset Cinema venue hire agreement for 24-25. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Beregi. Any discussion? Put the item. All those in favour? And that is carried. Schedule of rates for civil works tender 10.9. Is there a mover? Councillor Beregi, seconded by Councillor Lamb. All those in favour? And that is carried. 10.10, quotation assessment under contract LGP 420B, Willoughby Road East Side, Crow's Nest, moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Beregi. I put the item. All those in favour? And that is carried. That brings us to the final item on the agenda this evening. Councillor Lamb, your motion on student support.
Thank you. I'd like to move it.
Is there seconded by Councillor Beregi? Do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. I will be quick, as I'm sure everyone else is tired as well. But I put this motion forward so that North Sydney Council can start to put its focus on providing more support to our students without a quiet place to study at home, and to make sure everyone has a local and accessible study location in all corners of our local government. North Sydney already has some amazing libraries, such as Stanton Library or the St Leonard's Libraries. But we are due to face a population boom, and we need to prepare for more students and more of our population if we want to maintain our reputation of being an education-focused and supportive local government. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson?
I just had a question. If we look at the only bit that I was worried about, and it's an excellent idea. Thank you, councillor Lamb. If we look at point 3, so the council researches a strategy to promote student discounts in all cafes and restaurants. I'm not sure that that's council's role to, we couldn't insist on it. Do you mean just encourage it or
Yes, to encourage.
just
promote,
encourage?
to and make any type of independent business, it'd be beneficial for them to support students.
Well, that's good. It's of course a cost to restaurant. Maybe we could combine this with my other passion, which is lowering our outdoor dining fees to at least match that of the City of Sydney. A lot of our small businesses and cafes are really suffering at the moment in a cost of living crisis, and they're finding it tough to actually meet their obligations to pay for their outdoor dining fees. So, but it's a good suggestion, and maybe some restaurants would take that up.
Thank you, councillor Spencer, then councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, along with councillor Gibson, I'd probably have just a little bit of concern around point 3. I think the point 1 and point 2 is utilising council's resources in a really strong way. I'm just not sure that it's going to be successful or a good use of council staff's time to promote student discounts in cafes. You know, cafes are in a free market. If there's a business opportunity to do so around schools, I'm sure they have the opportunity. So I'd propose an amendment that removed point 3, but strongly support point 1 and 2.
I'll second that, councillor Spencer. So I think we will be taking staff off on a task that they can't do.
Okay, thank you, councillor Berry now has the floor.
Thank you. I'll speak in support of the motion and against the amendment. There are many local businesses that already do promote student discounts. They have between 3 and 5 that students can come in and get a mini lunch or something. And I have had many in Neutral Bay and in North Sydney say, how do we coordinate this so that the students know where to come? So I can't see a problem with it. We're researching a strategy. We're not asking them. I think it involves actually communicating with the local businesses, which I think is a good thing from a council perspective, and asking how can they support the student population. And there is a big gap between 3 and 5 when students leave school and when students either go to study at the library, where actually they need some sustenance. And if they felt like, you know, I know there's many cafes that will do a 2-for-1 or the food or a small Char-Grilled Charlie's do a student chips for $2, which is very, very well received by many. But I think this is just asking the council research it. It's not about enforcing it. It's not about making small business. And do you know what? Small business might actually give council some feedback as well. So it's a two-way street. So I support the motion. I don't support the amendment. I think we should be looking at student support in a holistic way. And I do agree with councillor Lamb. We've got an increasing population. We're the highest education precinct, and our libraries are packed, absolutely packed. And it is a need that is part of both supporting the community, but it is also social isolation where children are coming home to houses without parents there, and they do need that support network. So thank you very much for putting your motion up.
Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm comfortable with promoting student discounts in cafes. Possibly the word is in all cafes and restaurants. In participating cafes and restaurants, and I don't think there's any problem with putting on our website that says these are cafes and restaurants that are providing a student discount. So I would propose a slight amendment there to talk
I'd
about.
vote for it if we just change the word.
Will you take on the word on board student discounts in and delete the word all and insert the word participating? Yes, and seconder. Yes, thank you, councillor Burke. Do you wish to withdraw the amendment?
Yeah, I'll withdraw the amendment.
Thank you. That leaves us with the motion. Do you wish to exercise a right of reply?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am a strong supporter of the last point 3, just because students are a vulnerable part of our population who do not have the time for a full-time job. They do not have time to research solid recipes or healthy ways of eating and living. They need as much support as anything, and this isn't just primary students, but also university students who, while living in a cost of living crisis, they do not have the resources to eat out most days. And studying does leave you hungry. So they deserve the support such as this. And it's simply a report on how to best help them, how to best encourage cafes and restaurants. We cannot force them to do anything. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried unanimously, and that brings us to the close of the meeting. Thank you to everyone who participated, and good night.